final section in this chapter is 10.7, instantaneous rate of change, and it should look familiar. Again, when we talk about the instantaneous rate of change, we are talking about the slope of the tangent. We're talking about the first derivative. Those things all mean the same thing. So what I'm going to be doing here is no different than I've been doing in the last few, where I'm going to go ahead and use my shortcut. F prime of x is, this is a quotient, so quotient rule, low d high minus high d low over low low. And then I just want to evaluate it at the given value. So I'm going to be doing f prime of 1, and I just have to plug 1 in there. I get negative 2 times 2 minus 1 times 1 over, oops, I forgot to square that in the bottom, negative 2 squared. Evaluate the whole thing. Negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5/4. And so my instantaneous rate of change at 1 is negative 5/4. I'm going to have you guys pause and do the rest. Again, it should look familiar, just what we've been working with. Just the directions, the name of the directions change. So I ended up with my derivative when I plugged it in for number 2, negative 2. When I plugged it in for 3, I got 48. I didn't check my math. If you have an issue, just let me know. Here's where things change a little bit, but it still isn't brand new. The other directions we could have is finding the average rate of change, and the average rate of change is the slope between 2 points. So there's a difference between instantaneous at a specific value and average between 2 values. And so when I'm doing the average rate of change, what I have to do is put it basically in the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or if I'm putting it in terms of functions, f of x2 minus f of x1 over x2 minus x1. Well, these are my x1 and x2 values, and so I just have to plug those in to get my f of x values. So f of negative 3 is 1 over negative 5, and f of negative 2 is 1 over negative 4. And so when I plug it in to find my average rate of change, I would do f of x2, so that's that second one, negative 1/4 minus f of x1, negative 1/5 over, and then I do my x values, negative 2 minus negative 3. And then I just have to evaluate and do that however you need to do it, calculator or not. I have 1/4 plus negative 1/4 plus 1/5. Looks like 1/20 over 1, and so my final is 1/20. That would be my average rate of change. Again, I'm going to evaluate this the same way. My x1 and my x2, I need to find f of x1 and f of x2. F of x1 is 2, negative 1 squared plus 1. F of x2 is 1. I put it into my slope formula, 1 minus 2 over 0 minus negative 1. I end up here with negative 1, average rate of change. So the second half of this is finding both. The next few problems are finding both and comparing them. So when you flip over to the next page, I'm going to do the first one with you, and then I'll let you try the other two, and then again pause the video and see how you did. But I need to find the average rate of change of the function over the given interval, so the average rate of change over this, and then the instantaneous rate of change at the leftmost value. The leftmost value will be my first value written. So this gives me my interval from 0 to 1/2, and so the leftmost value is 0. So I could start with that f prime of x for the instantaneous comes from my derivative. I could do a quotient rule on this one, or I could do where I change it to a negative power. And I'll just do the quotient rule, so it's the low d high minus high d low over low low. And then I'll find f prime of the leftmost, 0. That's again the leftmost. So I'll plug that in. I have negative 2 times 0 minus 1 over negative 2 squared. That leaves me with negative 1/4 for my instantaneous. Okay, instantaneous. And now I want to go through and find my average. I do f of 0, which is negative 1/2, and f of 1/2, which is 1 over 1/2 minus 2. So 1 over 1/2 minus 2 gives me negative 3/2, or negative 2/3. And just plug it in your calculator. I mean, I'm just doing the math. I'm not teaching you how to work with fractions. If you're not getting the same thing, either email me and I'll talk you through it better, or use your calculator. But these are my values, so I'm going to plug it in for my average rate of change, and that's the slope formula. So it's negative 2/3 minus negative 1/2 over 1/2 minus 0. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or f of x2 minus f of x1 over x2 minus x1, however you want to go through that. So I have negative 2/3 plus 1/2. That's negative 4/6 plus 3/6. That's negative 1/6 over 1/2. When I do my cleanup, negative 1/3 is what I get as my answer, and this is my average rate of change. So I have the instantaneous and the average. Please label them when you do your work so we know what you're looking at. You can even label them with A and I. That part doesn't matter too much to me. But again, what I'd like you to do is to give 7 and 8 a try, see how you do, and then you can come back in and check them, pause it, check them. Your goal tonight is to finish 10-7, evens or odds, and then work on your review and get yourself ready for your test. I am back for 7. I got 2 for the average and 3 for the instantaneous. And for 8, I got 5 for the average and 4 for the instantaneous. I also need you to go back and take a look at problem number 4. I double-checked my math on that. That should have been a negative 1/20 there when I did this math here. I forgot to put the negative 1/4 plus 1/5 should have been negative 1/20. Sorry about that confusion, but make that correction. Problem number 4 should be negative 1/20. Again, do 10-7 notes, evens or homework, evens or odds, and prepare for your test. I will talk to you soon. Bye.